reserves, and we're very privileged to be joined today by my friend and National Geographic explorer Salome Buglass is here, and she's going to be joining us, and she joins us today from Vancouver out on the west coast of Canada. Good morning, how are you?
Good morning, pleasure to be here. How are
Hello.
you?
I'm doing all right. It's a little hot today. Is it hot? Is it going to be a hot day in Vancouver today?
No, we're gonna have rain today. It's
Nope.
Vancouver.
Rain today. Oh, Vancouver. Oh, all right. Well, it's sunny today and very humid around us. And I had a question for you. You've worked in the Galapagos Islands for many years, and you've been exposed to parks that are underwater. Can you talk about a marine park or the idea of the marine parks in the Galapagos and anything significant that comes to mind?
Yeah, for sure. It has been an absolute privilege to live in the Galapagos Islands, which are a terrestrial park since 1959. But in 1998, which was 40 years after they declared the land a national park, they decided that they also need to declare the ocean that surrounds the islands a marine protected area. And this marine protected area is absolutely incredible. It has the most incredible biodiversity that I've ever seen, partly because the Galapagos is in a very unique location. Even though we're slap bang on the equator, we have cold waters that are as cold as the ones that we see here in BC. So we have marine animals that are from cold water habitats and from tropical habitats. So we have penguins, sea lions, together with coral reefs, uh, and and tropical fish, and we have huge schools of hammerheads, and the biodiversity is incredible. And part of this is because of the unique environment, but also because it's been protected. And by protected, we mean we have an invisible or political border that protects a certain marine area, and then within this border, things are restricted. So in the case of the Galapagos, you're not allowed to fish. No industrial fishing happens. There's small scale local fishing only, and no other industrial activities are allowed. And that's usually what a marine park is, or a marine protected area. There are many words for it. In Galapagos, it's called the Galapagos Marine Reserve. And usually, a park just means that there's some sort of restriction of human activity, usually a destructive activity, and
Okay.
that allows you to preserve this place and its biodiversity for the enjoyment of people or for the protection of a certain biodiversity. Not every park is the same, though. So there are marine protected areas where
Okay.
absolutely no fishing and no one can go, whereas there's others where we're allowed to be tourists in. Some fishing is happening, but it's restricted on certain times of the year. So yeah, there are all kinds of parks, but Galapagos National Park is probably one of the best protected marine protected areas, and it monitors very, very carefully who goes in and who goes out and what everyone is doing inside.
Oh, cool. And we have a couple of maps that I made very quickly. If you're watching us, whether it's on air or online or just simply on your computer, we have a map, or two maps actually, that show the location of the Galapagos and the fact that they're off the coast of Ecuador, about 600 miles, using our English units there, 600 miles off the coast of Ecuador to the west coast and in the Pacific Ocean. And the Galapagos actually are unique because the equator almost doesn't bisect, it's not symmetric, but the equator does pass through the territory of the Galapagos. Salome, what are the difficulties in making sure that a marine sanctuary or a marine park stays protected?
Well, as you could tell, that marine protected area covers almost 130,000 kilometers. Sorry, that's around 51,000 square miles. There we go. um, and
On the fly,
to
that's pretty good
protect,
there.
well, memory, um, and to protect this. So this is an invisible border, right? It's not fenced, and to be able to protect it, it's actually really difficult. There's a lot of challenges. There will be poachers, fishing boats that come in to fish sharks. There's a lot of money for shark fins these days. So it's hard to prevent, in the case of the marine parks, poachers from coming in. Uh, there's there's a plane that sometimes flies around the park to monitor things, but as you can imagine, this becomes very, very expensive. So how protected a park is usually correlated to how much money the government has to spend in enforcement and monitoring. And usually this is not a lot. For example, Ecuador is a country that is still that is still undergoing economic development, so they definitely have their restricted funds. But because Galapagos is such a beloved place, it does get funding from other places. Um, so we have other groups that come and support with ships and helicopters to monitor it. But it's a very expensive deal, and I think the most important thing to make marine protected areas work is when locals who need whatever is in that area, whether it's fishing there, they understand why, and they want the protection as well, and that they can benefit from it in some shape or form. Because then, whether if it's for tourism or they're allowed a certain amount of fishing, because that way you don't have to hunt after locals or make sure that they're not poaching. They will naturally want to protect it. So it's very important to work with the people and the communities that live around this protected area or depend on it.
And real quick before we go, we have two quick questions. What's your favorite marine park that you've ever visited before?
It's the Galapagos. No, hands down.
Definitely the Galapagos. Okay, hands down. And if you could go visit a marine park that you haven't been to, where would that be?
I would love to go to the Queen Gardens of Cuba. This is a protected area that the Cuban government has made a no-take zone, so it's been completely cut off from any fishing for, I think, over 30 or 50 years now. And I'm from the Caribbean, and the Caribbean has been very, very overfished. It's very, very damaged by tourism and just port building. So there's actually I've never seen a natural reef in a good, healthy state. And apparently these reefs are in a pristine state. So I would love to see what the Caribbean looks like underwater before human intervention. So maybe one day I'll be lucky enough to go to Cuba.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today. We really do appreciate your time and your insight into all things marine parks. Thank you again, and have a great day.
Thank you, and enjoy the sun. I'm jealous.
Thanks. Well, that was Salome Buglass. She is a marine scientist, and